Finally caught up. Every AAA game is in trouble. Sorry, every AAA is in trouble. Punishment is here. Rivals T2, EA, Activision, Blizzard.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's video is a true bombshell for the games industry. This is one of those things that can have true impact, so let me explain. What just happened is the European Union just rewrote the rules on premium currency in games. Of course, that's the home of Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy, and so many other companies.
Of in-game currencies.
The European Union just rewrote the rules.
Commission and national authorities take action to protect children from harmful practices in video games. Okay.
On premium currency in games.
Premium currency. Would that include riot points? You know, the RP?
Of course, that's the home of Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy.
And, the Hoyoverse stuff too. Like the Primogems.
And so many other companies. And make no mistake, the new rules that they have just laid out could change gaming utterly. Actually change the games that you play. So you know those bundles where you've got to buy more currency than the item that you want costs? Or perhaps the idea of limited time of...
Bro, the only reason they all have premium currencies, they have their own currencies in games, is for shady practices. It is just true. Everybody knows this. Because you'll always just be slightly off. Plus, you don't feel the same if there's like a tiny buffer in between. If you first purchase the money and then you purchase the skin. It doesn't feel the same way as just buying groceries. It's so shady.
Events of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by...
Wait, the refunds? Refundable, non-refundable content. Are they going against non-refundable stuff?
And the item that you want costs. Or perhaps the idea of limited time events, of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by legislators. And when the EU takes action, it's a large enough block that it can reverberate around the world.
Rare EUW?
And as evidence, how's that USB-C charger on our phone working out? There's a lot to talk about. Strap in. This one could actually, honestly, be pretty f***ing good. Oddly enough, you've got EU legislation to thank for the standardized phone charger situation, and for many, the ability to play ROMs on their iPhone. But now we seem to have EU legislation to thank for premium currency being threatened, so here's what went on. In September 2024, the EU proposed the Digital Fairness Act that was targeting all the practices online that made...
What do you mean, Rare? The EU has been so shitty recently. They've been so shitty recently, especially with the immigration stuff. That's why I mean Rare. Kids, I need to go now to do some important stuff. Good evening to you and chat. Cheers, everyone. Goodbye.
Using digital services miserable, and in particular, it called out dark patterns in video games as one of the targets, and that's basically the gross manipulative techniques that trick and strong-arm money out of people, obviously especially applying to people who are not yet adults. And this is fairly weighty because in the EU alone, games are obviously big business. Revenues have been going up in the EU. Online game spending in 2018 represented 74% of turnover coming from online revenue, and 83% by 2022.
Bro, what? Bro, what? Look how much it went up in those 2 years, man. Oh my... Like, partially, obviously, the little time period that happened in this time is twofold because everyone was online and everyone wanted to distract themselves online. But obviously, the companies took freaking advantage of it.
That's all of those fun, dark patterns actually working and getting digital currency money out of people. But those dark patterns target the most vulnerable people the most. And there's no one more vulnerable in the eyes of the law than children. Children who spend an average of €31 a month on online games, according to data from Video Games Europe.
You know when the first time was I spent money in a video game? I was 16, 17 maybe. First time ever. Now, I'll be honest, there wasn't as many opportunities to spend money in an online game as compared to nowadays. But that was the first time. And yes, also, how the hell do children have this money? I'll tell you how. They steal their parents' credit cards. Simple. I mean, there was that one story where a girl had spent their entire family savings on gacha. Like, insanity. Freaking insanity. 31, 39, 33 on video games as children. Children should not be spending money on video games. At least not on microtransactions. Like, if they want one video game, yes, but no microtransactions.
Well, that's actually went down from 2023. I guess that's good. Everyone's feeling a little bit of the economic pinch, but it's not stopped the EU from taking action to protect kids, basically, from predatory premium currency models. And in situations like this, there's often a great offender, right, that is held up as an example of something doing everything wrong. So you might wonder, is it an Activision game? Is it Ultimate Team from the EA football games? Maybe it was Roblox. No, today, it's a game about horses. It's called Star Stable. You've probably never heard of it.
No, what the?
This all does turn out good. We'll have the horse girls to thank. This is Star Stable Online. It comes from a Swedish developer called Star Stable Entertainment, and it is the game that may have just rewritten rules and monetization in the EU. So, yeah.
So one company got too greedy and they ruined it for everyone else. That's so
Thanks,
funny.
Horse girls. Now, it turns out that Star Stable just uses
And by everyone else, I mean the companies.
all of the premium currency tactics in the book, which makes it a pretty awesome example, right? Especially because it is targeted at a younger audience. So in March 24, the Swedish Consumer Agency filed a complaint with the EU-wide Consumer Protection Cooperation Network. That's a mouthful. And that complaint alleged that Star Stable Entertainment were targeting children and using harmful commercial practices that breached EU consumer regulations. Now, the findings corroborated much of those allegations. They found that the game made direct appeals to children in their ads, that they were using pressuring techniques like FOMO, which is particularly despicable when it's not, on adults, and the
Oh my, bro, all these companies are so disgusting, man. It's literally just gambling for children. It's just gambling for children. They start early nowadays, man. Should I play this game? No, you should not!
There was a lack of transparency on purchases and loads more things. I mean, here's an example of one that's particularly rough. They were responsible for influencers promoting the game to kids without any disclosure of the spending risk. So, in short, it's bloody well damning. Star Stable Entertainment now have a month to address complaints and propose solutions with their game, but what matters for our purposes today is the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, we can just call the CPCN. They have laid out what they want. So I'll spell it out via an example. This is what should happen in the ideal world. You, dear gamer, want to buy yourself a new horse. You see that the new horse costs 300 star coins. The store tells you that's around £5, so it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly.
How much was it?
A new horse. You see that your new horse costs 300 star coins. The store tells you that's around
300
£5.
exactly. At least it's not 299. At least it's not a little bit off.
So it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly. You buy exactly what you need for the horse, rather than the current bundles that exist of 200 coins or 400 coins, meaning that you always have to buy with some wastage, which just ends up giving the company more money.
But it's also been proven that a person that made one purchase is more likely to spend money again. So it's like a gateway.
So in short, no obfuscation bullshit, no weird tactics. And worst of all for these companies, this will have them bloody well shaking. You'd have to have a refund policy, both for the coins and the horse. And none of this would be pitched as a limited time event where you have got to get the thing right now. So that's an example then of how these policies should be applied, and each is indeed a massive win for consumers. But that would not matter if this amounted to nothing. You could look at all this and think, right, so some Swedish horse game has got a slap in the wrist. No, it's more than that. This seems to have backbone. So here's the big important bit. These solutions are the backbone of what the European Consumer Organization calls key principles for trustworthy gaming environments. And these could cause huge problems for anyone who is using premium currency. When I say this could shake the foundations of the game industry.
I hope it does. I hope it does. Because the companies have been too greedy for far too long. Was that leaked? Yeah, it was.
Economy, I absolutely mean it. So these, which I'm going to spell out for you, are the minimum requirements for purchasing and using virtual currencies in the EU. And what's neat is the philosophy behind them. So the CPCN considers these premium currencies as an equivalent to the real money that is used to purchase them. And that for them means that they are just as worthy of legal scrutiny. So you can see how that is in a way a mindset shift that paves the way for actually treating these as they are. So just think about the last game that you played that had a premium currency in it. Whatever that game is, I want you to keep it in mind. And with that in your mind, I'm now going to go through the various different practices that this targets. So, prices for premium currency packs that are a little more than the available product. So you've got to buy extra coins, extra gems, whatever it may be. Obfuscation of how much currency is worth by always pairing currency with other items or multiple currency options. As an example, I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that.
Wait. Practices to avoid offering for purchase and mixing different in-game virtual currencies in one video game for purchasing in-game digital content or services. Requiring several exchange of in-game virtual currencies before making any in-game purchase. Oh my god, the last one! The last one is the gacha. Damn. But yeah, that sounds like a WoW is falling under it.
Options. As an example, I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that because it includes Trader's Tender in one of the new mount bundles. Another one, a complete lack of a refund option for making currency purchases or even for in-game items. So there would have to be a refund policy. That's something none of us are used to in these games. Also, FOMO practices to encourage buying. Those are going to be looked at, so some of those may no longer be allowed. And all of these practices are now something that the EU can hold against developers and publishers, even more so if the parental controls of said game are not up to scratch. So it's less a case of me saying, can you think of any game that falls into those categories? And it's more me saying, can you think of a game?
I'll raise you one better. Can you think of a game that doesn't fall into this category?
That doesn't fall into that is. It's fairly humongous, which might indeed be the point here. We know this is something the EU have been thinking about in other circumstances than just Star Stable. As an example, in September 2024, the European Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games, and in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24, Minecraft, Fortnite, and a bunch of others. And it was
Minecraft? Wait, why Minecraft? Minecraft has a store? Skins from... Wait, what? Bedrock Edition is a skin. It's Really? I never knew.
The Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games. And in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24,
EA Sports is so over. I love it.
Fortnite, and a bunch of others. And it was all about how the virtual currencies work. They were not thrilled on what they found in those games, right? Because many of them, well, they did the same things that, Star Stable did that we do not like. And that straight up means we can say that Electronic Arts and Blizzard Entertainment are being directly targeted by this body. That really is something. So it's no wonder that the BEUC will be holding workshops to help European companies implement these new principles. Because it seems they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was acceptable pretty much now isn't. And that, here's the shocking thing.
I hope this goes through. I so hope this goes through. Screw all these companies. for messing with all of us our entire lives long already, man. And forgetting children that are just getting into those games, addicted to gacha, to gambling mechanics.
That's not my commentary. That is what the industry response has been, so we know they are shaking in their boots. It ain't surprising the industry bodies aren't thrilled about this, and a big shout out to one of our Bellular Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this stuff. So, the European Game Developers Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar.
Huh?
Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of
making everything fair?
annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption. Back to the statement.
What?
It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games.
To be fair, Overwatch went free after they implemented more in-game currencies. Just to be fair. But if they just have fair practices, as in just offering the skin up for straight up money or for straight up the amount, with no shady shit there, with no gamba there, people will just buy the skin. To be fair, in the EU, it's even worse. Some countries have to translate from their currency to euro and then to in-game currency and then to shop item. Bro, that is so complicated. Also, don't a lot of countries in the EU, at least, I think the Netherlands at least, already have like gambling stuff banned, so a lot of games aren't even playable?
Now that last bit is the interesting thing. So,
Belgium?
understandably,
Okay.
right, these groups, representing the most powerful players in the industry, did quite like things the way that they were. Change is dangerous, especially to the bottom line, and especially change like this. But in a way, they're not inherently wrong. It is true that audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now, and when implementing currencies, these companies were following, their best legal guidance, and now that guidance has changed. I guess just like how so many phones had like a bespoke charging cable until the rules just changed in the middle of the game. So now they've got to get used to these new rules.
I must say, this was such a W thing by the EU too, to enforce this standard, to enforce one USB port to it's so good. I can't even explain how fucking smart and good this is just for humans, man.
And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges or damage from rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles. As for smaller companies, well, they may not find that so easy. But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games. They'd say with a game like...
Right. Yeah, sure. Sure, Sure, yeah. Try that. See how that goes.
Like Overwatch, right? That they would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model or to just continue the game as normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them. That being said, the EU population is kinda huge. Overall.
I'm so glad he pulled this up because I was about to. 448 million inhabitants, who account for 5.6% of the world's population. Yeah, go on, lose out on all those 448 million inhabitants. Of course, not all of these people are playing video games, but it's a lot.
Overall GDP is obviously a very, very flawed metric, but as an example, right, just Googling this here in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money, and a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries like, say, China, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way, there are two wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them...
Just two wolves inside of me.
...is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that says, let the market decide. If the gamers do not like the bad practices, the gamers...
The gamers are dumb. The gamers are dumb. The gamers will eat horse shit if the horse shit looks shiny enough. We've seen it. The whales are enough. The whales are enough for them to continue this practice. So no, don't let gamers decide. I have never seen gamers come together. You know how often and how annoyed gamers are at Blizzard, and how they're like, oh, we're not gonna play your game, and we're not gonna buy this mount, and we're not gonna buy the special deluxe edition, but the whales still buy it. Oh, so then people started slash spit on the people that had the mounts. Guess what Blizzard did? They took slash spit out of the game. Blizzard is protecting their whales. There's too many whales that gamers cannot go against. Something $500 law skin. Exactly.
Shall not partake in them, and the market will solve the problem. And I wish that was true, but I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that.
Sorry for pausing, just... What Vicious is saying is absolutely right. Asmund said it, gamers have no self-control, and that is 100% true. That is 100% true. Asmund has said this before. Blizzard is always just one good cinematic away from players coming back. Because in the end, players, the consumer, doesn't care what's going on behind the scenes. They don't care. Someone's drinking breast milk at the office? Go enjoy it, sir. As long as the game is good. People don't care. As long as they can consume something good, something shiny. The game companies know which buttons to push. Yes! Yes, we won't see Nintendo stock dip when the Switch 2. No, we will not! There will be enough people buying the Switch. And the games. It's just how it is. Gamers do not have self-control. And yes, I will be one of the people that will buy a Switch too. I'm sorry to tell you, chat, but I will.
I'll not partake in them, and the market will solve the problem. And I wish that was true, but I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that, because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work. We're in a world where you can very easily make, I think, some sound enough, philosophical arguments very much against regulation and all of that. And I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that in many cases. But the thing is, we've also got to be pragmatic. And a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them.
We do not. We don't at all. We hate them. My problem with the Switch 2 isn't the prices, it's the fact that physical copies literally do not exist. That is false. That is actually false. You were fed false information. Now, YouTube and chat, the reason why they are cartridges which only function as a code, as an okay to the console that you own the game. They are, yes. But that's only the case if the game is bigger than... I forgot the number. If it's a big copy. If it's like a big gigabyte. Elden Ring does not fit on a Switch cartridge. Elden Ring does not fit on a goddamn Switch cartridge yet. And Elden Ring is coming to Switch. Is there any games nowadays that do Switch games? Games of the Switch itself. Pokemon. Legend of Zelda. So they bloat the game says like Activision does? It's Elden Ring. We're talking about Elden Ring right now. Buddy, Elden Ring. Are they not able to find better cartridges since the Switch 1? I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't make the technology. I just know they don't fit. So there will be games, big games. There will be big games that won't fit entirely on the cartridge. So instead, it will be a code. The physical stuff is for the people that want to have a collection. I guess. I prefer completely physical copies too, right? But I do get that this Elden Ring doesn't fit on a fucking cartridge. It just doesn't. Smaller games will still be on cartridges. You will still own the actual cartridge with the game on it. You won't be needing to be online to download it. Is it a matter of game companies being lazy about compressing the game data? In some cases, absolutely. In some cases, yes. In other cases, no. Like some cases with like, what game was that? Was that COD? Like 150 gigs or whatever? In some cases, it's just fucking bloated. Either way, let's get back to the video. Enough about the Nintendo. They could upgrade the cartridges, they could, but I guess they couldn't this time, I don't know. I'm just saying how it is at the moment.
Yet, people's behavior does continue.
Let's go back 5 seconds.
Not popular, people do not like them. Yet, people's behavior does continue. And these obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become what the companies focus on. And that is worse for the actual video games. Because I suppose in a way, how much of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation and these various business strategies that are designed to rake in
especially FOMO. Like, FOMO is so manipulative, man.
Revenue in a way that's not, like, really tied to the experience of a game that you purchase. We've just seen the share of that increase and increase and increase, and it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices are no longer viable, good riddance.
Yeah.
Good riddance, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let the companies fail, let those jobs go down. How we run things should be a dialogue between the private and public sectors, and in a case like this, I think it's an example of the public sector, right? The people essentially saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game. We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust. And yeah, the market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution. And if the new rule set is a better rule set, then that should be a net good. But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement. Enforcement, because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy, Mr. Belgium, right? That's why even though Belgium has banned loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that
is it? I haven't played WoW in a while.
For the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall. That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as many people have kind of went, Belgium, you, take him down. It hasn't really mattered because it's just Belgium.
Breaking ban. Belgium's ineffective gambling law regulations of video game loot boxes. You can just use VPNs, right? If you use VPNs, can you still buy with your credit card from Belgium? You could. Yeah. I can neither confirm nor deny. Okay, Iron.
One little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's because the EU is, 26 other countries. And also Belgium. In 2023, it was worth 25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of...
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah, sure. Games will just not sell in the EU. Yeah, sure. Go on. 25.7 billion. Sure. Yeah, but companies will just stop selling games to the EU. Yeah.
Revenues.
Obviously.
And we know that their legislators are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network, and that does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing limitations. I'm sure Apple would have loved to have continued just...
Of course they would have, and they would have done it. But it's more expensive for them to create 2 different kinds of phone and to be able to ship them to 2 different locations in the end. That's more complicated than just completely swapping over.
Selling people lightning adapters in the States, but ultimately they seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C. No one wanted to have, of course, a whole factory just making EU-only phones. And again, thinking about the impact that would have had on the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how with hardware, it does kind of make sense. We can see those software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America, but you can in the EU. So the question then is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to European countries? If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the European gamer. And then you can say, well, compare your store to mine. My one is a bit more respectful, doesn't have as much FOMO, doesn't have as many tricksy bundles and things that basically feel like a scam. And that'll be a bad look. That's the dilemma that these companies face, and in a way, it's all thanks to a game about horses.
You guys think that someone in the government, like someone's daughter in the government was playing this and was just asking their parents for some money on this game? Like, I 100% believe that happened. Like, 100% I believe it.
So, hero of the day? Horse girls. I guess that's a thing. Okay. Tell you what, though, if you want another story, another big, grand, juicy story, check out this one. It also hits the EU, but it also hits corporate melodrama, which is honestly some of my favorite.
Ubisoft has split. Oh, they have? Oh yeah, right. Didn't Ubisoft get bought off by Tencent? Is that what he's talking about? Totally cheaper than buying and keeping a horse, though. Why am I getting blamed? Because you're Swedish! It's a Swedish horse game! We are being saved by the horse girls. We truly are.